The KivoTales studio presents The Inheritance of Dust. The smell of my father's house was the same. Lemon polish and old books, with a faint metallic whisper of the sea air that seeped in through the warped window frames. I stood in the hallway, my suitcase weighing down my arm, the silence so thick I could hear the dust motes dancing in the late afternoon sun. This was the house I'd grown up in, the house I'd fled from 5 years ago after the funeral. After the words that couldn't be unsaid. Now, a lawyer's tersely worded email had dragged me back. The reading of the will, the final performance. My older brother, Liam, was already in the study, just as I knew he would be. He stood with his back to me, a silhouette against the large bay window that overlooked the tangled mess of the garden. He didn't turn when I entered, but his shoulders, encased in a crisp, expensive suit, stiffened almost imperceptibly. "Clara," he said, his voice flat. It wasn't a greeting. It was an acknowledgement of an inconvenient presence. "Liam," I replied, my own voice barely a whisper. The lawyer, a Mr. Davison I didn't recognize, sat behind our father's great oak desk, a place that had always felt like a throne of judgment. He cleared his throat, the sound unnaturally loud. The ritual began. The small bequests to distant cousins, the donation of his nautical collection to the local museum. My heart was a frantic bird beating against my ribs. This was it. The house. The boat, the modest savings. It would all go to Liam, the golden child, the son who had stayed, who had worked alongside Dad in the boatyard, whose hands were calloused with the same grit and grime. I had made my peace with that, or so I told myself. I'd chosen a different life, a quiet one, as a graphic designer in a city hours away. I had chosen art over anchor lines. In my father's eyes, it had been a betrayal. And to my daughter, Clara, Mr. Davison read, adjusting his glasses, I leave the contents of the cedar chest in the attic and my pocket watch. The air left my lungs. The pocket watch was a family heirloom, yes, but it was tarnished and rarely worked. The cedar chest? I remembered it from childhood. A dusty box full of moth-eaten blankets and old photo albums. A consolation prize. A token. A final, quiet dismissal. Liam finally turned. There was no triumph in his eyes, only a weary sort of victory, as if he'd won a war that had long since ceased to have any meaning. Numb, I followed Liam's hired hand. James, up the narrow pull-down stairs to the attic. The air was thick and hot, smelling of aged paper and forgotten things. James, a young man with kind eyes, heaved the chest toward the stairs. "It's heavier than it looks," he grunted. I barely nodded, my gaze catching on a corner of paper that had slipped from under the lid. As James maneuvered the chest down the rickety stairs, I knelt and gently pulled it free. It was a faded envelope addressed to me in my father's unmistakable slanted handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. The paper was thin, the ink a little blurred. "My dearest Clara, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you've been given the chest. I suppose Liam got the rest. I need you to understand. It was never a punishment, it was a protection. The boatyard is failing. It has been for years. There are debts, Clara, deep ones. Liam is stubborn, like me. He'll try to save it, and it will break him, but it's the only path he knows. I couldn't burden you with that anchor. You were always the one who saw a world beyond the harbor. The chest isn't filled with junk. Under the linens, you'll find your grandmother's jewelry, the real pieces. And taped to the underside of the lid is the key to a safety deposit box. In it is the money from the sale of my parents' house. It's yours. It's your freedom. Use it to build the beautiful, colorful life you always dreamed of, a life I was too afraid to chase. I am so proud of the woman you became. Forgive a foolish old man who didn't know how to say it. Love, Dad." The letter fluttered from my fingers. The sounds of the house rushed back in. James's footsteps downstairs, the distant cry of a gull, the frantic thumping of my own heart. The betrayal I had felt so keenly, so righteously, shattered into a million pieces, each one a shard of my own misunderstanding. He hadn't been pushing me away. He had been setting me free. And in doing so, he had asked my brother to carry a burden I had never known existed. I looked from the letter in my hand to the attic stairs, down to where my brother stood, already on the phone, his voice tense as he discussed liquidating assets. He thought he had won the prize, but our father had given him a sinking ship, and he had given me the lifeboat. The weight of it, the heartbreaking, devastating love in that choice, crashed over me. My father's final act was not one of betrayal, but of sacrifice. And the real betrayal, I realized with a sickening lurch, was that I had ever believed him capable of anything less.
Did you like the story? Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to watch more.